If you've ever noticed that your t-shirts from the 90s are still going strong, but your newer ones are barely cracking the 2-year mark, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Today on the show, we're going to call I Hate Gildan. We're going to rebuild a pickup. So stick around, hang out, grab a coffee, grab a beer. Let's do this. So it's officially summer, which means it's hot as balls out. At least it's a bit cooler today than it was the last couple days. It was just like a fucking oven. But that means that school is out. That means that the house will be full 7 days a week, which means I won't have the freedom to do this once a week. So this will probably mark the end of season 2. You know, I'm just calling them seasons because it makes sense to organize stuff and it's having fun and all that jazz. So I don't know where the channel's going to go for the next couple months. Probably just going to do a series of shorts and little bonus clips or something. And then on the off chance that I have to stick around here, but my wife and kids want to go do something or whatever, then I'll have the house. So I don't want to film with them in the house. I'm still not comfortable filming alone in this room with a camera. So I was struggling a little bit as to what to do for the last episode of season 2. But I think I figured something out. So the last video, we went over the PRS guitars, what I think of the brand and the company and Paul himself and stuff. And they're really cool guitars. And so we had compared the PRS Core SC to SC 245. SE and SC sounds very similar. With an S2. You know, I'm just trying to, like, I'm really at home with the Les Pauls. I just like the way they feel. I like the way that each one has a slight difference. They're not as consistent as the PRS. But I did go to 2 band practices with the S2 just to kind of get comfortable with it and stuff. Got a garbage truck or something outside. And what I found with the S2 was that, not that my Gibsons are bad at holding tune, but I guess like this one here from, you know, straighter string pull and the locking tuners and the whole thing, like it was very stable for practice. And it sounded great. When I compare this to one of my Les Pauls in the room, there's a huge difference, and my preference is no question, no doubt, the Les Pauls. But in a band setting, as far as like the practice goes, it cut through. The solos cut through, the rhythm chunk, the cleans. The one thing that I did find is they don't react as well. These pickups, the stock No.7 S pickups, they don't clean up as well as a PF style pickup rolling back. But I did notice that the guitar, you know, all like different characters aside, you know, the cork sniffing, wine tasting type of thing that you would do in a room with an amp live versus in a band setting, 2 different worlds there, 2 different things. And as far as like doing the job and being easy to play and having relatively no quirks, this guitar does really well from a standpoint of where I play the most, which is in the room and with, you know, very specific amps and being just by ear, no mics, just by ear, playing this guitar versus that guitar, swapping pickups and all that. That is one thing. But then when you're on stage and you're playing a gig or you're jamming with a band, it almost becomes more of a tool and less of a, I don't know what to call it, but like it's more of a tool. And then that it became very clear to me that when used as a tool, it's a different set of parameters, at least for me, than when I'm playing to enjoy my own sound, the tones and the pickups and the guitar and you know, on my own within this room. So as a gigging tool, man, like you can't go wrong with these. So on that topic with these, the one thing that I would want to change on this, if I do keep this, is the pickups. And I do have a set of real USA Core No.7s Wait, no, I don't. I lied. This one had the 245s. They're close to the number 7s, but they're not the same. Where did I have number 7s? I had a set of number 7s. Regardless, we'll look at the numbers for the number 7s versus the 7S. But that's the thing I would want to change on this. Since the last video, I was thinking, should I keep this? What pickups would I put in it? I wouldn't put 50-niners in it, because to have a true 50-niner, which is to replicate a true PAF pickup, or here in Canada would be the PAF, EH. Funny Canadian joke there. Putting PFs in here, I'd have to have 4-conductor wire hookups so that I could use the coil splits. Then I thought, well, I could probably do my 5 series, which I got a 508 bridge here, and I've got a 557 neck pickup here. I could always use this set. They are splittable. They have the 4-conductor, but I'm not sure yet. Then I remembered I had a dead pickup that I meant to rewind a long time ago, and I haven't yet. And so what I found was it's the same pickup that's in here. So it's a number 7 S, but this one here was the neck pickup. PRS goes by treble and bass. So treble pickup is the bridge pickup, bass is the neck pickup. So this is an SP PRS 7 BNC. So what I'm suspect from that is it's a number 7 S, because it is a G&B G&B Pickup Co, which is a Korean brand, I believe. So this originally was the same pickup that's in the neck of this guitar, but I think I want to rewind it as a bridge pickup, because I think of this guitar here, the neck pickup isn't bad, but the bridge pickup is, I feel like it's wound a little hot, and then you get an Alnico 5 magnet on there, and they might have used 43 gauge, I'm not entirely sure, but it doesn't sound as open and as full as, say, the 58, the 558s I have in here, or the PFs I have in the 50-niners I have in the Les Pauls. So I think if I were to rewind it, it's essentially the same parts. They just wind more turns on the bobbins to get a hotter output for the bridge. The rest of the parts should be identical to the bridge out of these parts here that I'm pointing at that you're not seeing, but we'll get to the table in a bit. So I figured I'd rewind that as a bridge, and then we could pop it in here. I'll do a quick jam on both bridge pickups, the original and the rewind that we'll rebuild here, and then cap it off with that. And yeah, we'll do that. So we're just gonna switch over to the computer here just to review some of the specs. So like it's hard to find a lot of detail on PRS's pickups. They like to play those cards close to their chest, but you can sort of figure out the makeup of what they're doing. When you're used to buying parts and making your own pickups, you start to recognize a few things. So, but we'll check on the computer for the search results here, and then we'll get started. All right, so we're at my computer here. So I searched on Google PRS No.7 S pickup specs. Need glasses for this. Right, so this is the, when you search on Google, you get the AI overview. So it's like AI is going in and grabbing as much information all over the web as possible and puts it into one little thing at the top. So what it says is PRS No.7 S pickup, found in PRS SE and S2 models, is a humbucker known for its vintage style PAF sound, with a hotter output and prominent upper mids. It is not known for its vintage style PAF sound. It's a more modern sound. It sounds nothing like PAF. It sounds more modern, but okay, they're saying that it's PAF-like, but hotter. We'll check what what those pickups actually are, but on the multimeter. But it says also it's a versatile pickup, often described as falling between a 5708 and a Dragon 1 pickup in terms of output and characteristics. Okay, so let's see what did it say? 5808, 5708. All right, let's look at the 5708. I have a table here with the outputs. 5708 treble pickup, so the bridge pickup, is 9.4 k ohms on Alnico 2s, and it doesn't say the Henrys or any of the other, inductance and Q factor. So the bridge 5708 is 9.4 k ohms, and the neck one is 8.5 k ohms on Alnico 2. So that tells me one thing right there, is that the 5708, if it's wound on 42 gauge coil wire, that would be a very dark, muddy, muffled pickup, especially the neck pickup. So they're saying it's between a 5708 and a Dragon 1. Let's look at the Dragon 1. The Dragon 1 pickups are high output pickups, are high output humbucker set, known for their powerful sound, especially the bridge pickup. The bridge pickup is a ceramic magnet pickup with a DC resistance around 19 k ohms, which contributes to its aggressive high gain tone. The neck pickup, the neck Dragon 1, has a DC resistance of around 8 k ohms, and it has Alnico magnet. So I'm going to assume probably Alnico 5 to balance out with the ceramic bridge. If you had Alnico 2 neck wound to 8 k ohms, it's going to be fairly warm and dark, and there's going to be a very big power difference between the Alnico 2 neck and the ceramic bridge. So they're saying on the AI overview is saying that the PRS No.7 S is between a 5708 and a Dragon 1, and it's known for its vintage style PAF sound. Nope. So also there's a shit ton of pickups that fit between a 5708 and a Dragon 1, going from 9.4 k on the bridge to 19 k on the bridge for the Dragon 1. There's a lot of pickups that fit in between there. So there's that. The Dragon 1, I don't know what the neck pickup is wound with. If it's 42 gauge coil wire on the neck at 8K with, let's say, assume an Alnico 5, that's going to be a pretty boomy, muddy, dark neck pickup for the Dragons. And also for the 5708, which for the neck, it was 8.5 on Alnico 2, if it's wound on 42 gauge. The Dragon Bridge at 19 k ohms, I'm going to assume that's most likely going to be 44 gauge wire. So higher the number, the thinner the coil wire is, you could fit more. And so you can wind it out to 19 k ohms on 44 gauge and not lose as much top end as you would with a 43 or 42 gauge. Now, I'm going to assume that the 5708 and the No.7 S are probably going to be 42 gauge. If so, they're dark, warmish pickups. And it's funny that they're saying that the 5708 is a PAF style pickup, because that's wound pretty hot. The 5815s and the 5815 LTs that PRS makes are probably closer to the PAF range, where you get the 5815s are 8.64 k ohms on the bridge and 7.83 k ohms on the neck. That's closer to the general PAF range. And then the 5815 LTs are 7.75 k ohms on both. So that's a pretty normal reading for PAFs. You know, they normally range from low mid 7Ks up to, some have been in the 9K range, but if you look at most builders, the bridge is somewhere around the 7.8 to 8.4 K ohm, and the neck's around the 7.3 to 7.8 K ohms on the neck. And of course, Henry's, you know, inductance and Q factor play into that. But it's reason I'm going over this is I'm trying to figure out what to do with this rewind, because I can wind it to whatever I want, right? Let's look at the number 7. So this would be the core one. So the number 7 treble is 8.44 K ohms, and the bass, so the neck pickup, is 7.36 K ohms, both on Alnico's. Doesn't say which ones. Could be 2, could be 5, and so the number 7 is very much in the PAF range as far as DC resistance. We don't have Henry's or Q factor in there. We don't know specifically what magnet is in there, but it's in that output range of a PAF. We'll see what the number 7 S reads out to. But let's see here. So the 245 treble and bass. So what I had in this one stock, I think I mistakenly said it had number 7s in the previous video. Honest mistake. There's so many pickups, I forgot, but it had the 245 pickups. So the 245 treble is 9.6 K ohms, and the neck pickup is 8.96 K ohms. They were very dark and muddy. I pulled them out really quick. So I'm going to assume that's probably going to be 42 gauge wire on those 245s. So probably going to be 42 gauge on the 5708s, which look to be just, you know, a little less output than the 245s. So probably they got complaints that the 245s were a little too dark and muddy, so they spec'd a lower wind version of that, maybe, and called it the 8708. The 5708. The 5815s are more likely the 42 gauge coil wire as well. And the Dragon 2s, I don't know about the neck, probably 42 gauge. But the bridge, I would bet money it's a 44 gauge coil wire. So the 7S is somewhere in between there. So let's go back to the table. Oh yeah, I don't know about the number 7s, but I know that the 245s and the Dragons have a brass base plate. This is the base plate. They have a brass one. Brass tends to shave some top end, whereas nickel silver doesn't. And I did notice that a lot of the newer PRS pickups come with nickel silver base plate, not brass, on the US side. And on the import side are also doing that, probably because people were taking pickups out of their PRS and putting something that they felt sounded better, because the stock pickups just sounded dark and muffled. So there's that. Let's go to the table and just kind of look at the bobbins and parts real quick. All right, so here we are, tabletop. We got a lot of lawn mowing going on outside, so if you hear a weird ambient sound of motors running, that's lawnmowers burning around the neighborhood. Okay, so we have pickup parts here. We'll go over that. First things first, we're just gonna measure these number 7 S pickups here and get a reading on that. So we're on the neck pickup, and you've got 8.07 K ohms. That's the neck pickup. We're gonna go down to bridge, and we're getting 9.17 K ohms. So already the number 7 S pickups are already hotter than the number 7 USA pickups by a little bit. Keep in mind too, this is going through this whole circuit, control circuit. So if I were to pull the pickups out and read them individually, they'd be a touch hotter. So it'd be closer to like 9.2, 9.25 kind of thing. And with the neck it'd be, 8.1, 8.2 range. But I would consider these pretty overwound and it starts to not that it compresses the sound, but it's like it sounds like it's compressing the sound because you're boosting lows and some mids, but it's shaving top end, so it sounds a little more focused but dark. So I would probably want to wind like if I were to rewind this as a bridge, I'd probably want it to be in the 8.4 k ohm range. That's for the bridge. Let's check the Henrys because we have that on here. It's got 4.24 and a 5.28. So they're around the range of like a lot of other pickups that they're very similar to my 5 series as far as the Henrys go. So that's that. Now let's dig into these parts. So I got this pickup. I was basically given this pickup to me. Person said it's dead. It's worth nothing to me. Fix it if you can, or do whatever you want. And they've been sitting in a box for a better part of a year. And I've since like re-soldered the coil wire on both start and finish wires, and it's still no reading. So there's a break somewhere in here that I'm not finding. It's very loose. If I put my finger on the coils, I could see them moving. Same with this one. They're very loose. So I suspect there's a break somewhere in both these. But there's also these start and finish wires. So this is an import pickup. They've used very stiff wires, and I don't think it's the wire inside. I think it's the plastic insulator. It's a very stiff, and the way they wind it and then they just stick them like this. What I'm guessing is any kind of movement here will cause movement on this end under the tape. It could pull and stuff. Might not be the culprit, but I tend to use a softer wire, like something more like this, where it's more pliable. Actually even softer than that, but they're very stiff and plasticky. So I wonder if maybe through either heat and cool, metal expands, contracts. Maybe not so much this, but like tiny coil wire doesn't need as much heat or coolness to do its thing. And the way you could prove that is you could take a pickup and measure it when it's cold, and then measure it again when it's hot, like a day like yesterday. There was like 44 degrees with the humidity. It'll read higher on the hot days than the cool days. That's because the coil wire is expanding and then it contracts. So that might be a cause of that. So what I got to do with these is cut the wire and pull everything out. I'm not filming that because that's the most boring shit ever. But you get like an X-Acto knives. You just kind of cut and cut and cut. Try not to mess up the plastic too much. Then you pull it all out, clean it out, sand and smooth any divots or cuts you might have done with the blade. And then we rewind them. So I think I'm going to rewind them to maybe like my 557 spec. And then we have the magnet. This is an Alnico 5, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's an Alnico 5. When you wind the pickups this hot, you're going to want some strong magnet to get some of the high end back and tighten some of the lows, because the more you wind, you get way more lows. As far as pole screws that they used on this, they use short ones, so they don't stick out off the bottom like this. They're more like flush. So it'd be like, here's a 557. See, the screws are sticking out far past the base plate. Here's a 508. They're almost flush with the bottom. So I used short screws on here, longer on here. How does that affect sound? Well, you got more metal, you got more mass. It just affects the whole magnetic field by a little bit and makes a big difference. So I don't know what their goal here was, maybe to drop some of the intensity to get some of the clarity or vintage thing back. They've got 2 plastic spacers. I usually just use one because I run the wire, like the hookup wire, all the way up. So it acts as a spacer on the one bobbin. They're doing this, and their wire's just going in just this far. And so more chance of things pulling on, because the 4-conductor wire that you hook up to the pots connects to these 2 and 2 wires. So you got 4 wires. if it pulls, you can pull on one of these and it could break a coil wire inside, even though everything's taped up. And right, so even if you never take the cover off, pull there can tug at these and make it die, like break a coil. I run it all the way so that it's pulling it only on here and not at the connections. That's how I build them. Other builders do different things. What else? There's no way to tell what version of steel the screws and the slugs are. If it's 1010, 1018, 1022, 12L14, whatever. I'm assuming it's going to be higher carbon steel so that there's more brightness, right? Because it sticks to the magnet more than a lower carbon steel. Another thing with pickups is the base plate screws. So these are the screws that go under here and they hold the bobbins to the base plate, which snugs up the magnet, all that shit. Sometimes they're magnetic, sometimes they're not. In a PAF, they're typically brass and non-magnetic. In other pickups, they are magnetic. These look like brass. Here's a magnet, and they're not sticking. So PRS for their import, and I'm assuming probably the same for their USA stuff, in this case, are using the brass non-magnetic screws. So what that means is if they were magnetic, if they did stick to a magnet, that will add more it'll change the magnetic field. So changing these to magnetic screws could affect the tone too. So by going non-magnetic, it doesn't affect the magnetic field. These will, but they're part of the equation. This won't, right? This doesn't stick. But this will actually. So this is the original keeper bar. So this goes under the screw side bobbin. That's what keeps it elevated so you could fit the magnet underneath. Yeah, so it's broken. I could reuse this, but I have a full one here. But this one looks to be like some kind of zinc. Different materials on the keeper bar will affect the tone too. I would assume this might do like a brass base plate and affect the top end. Definitely going to affect the magnetic field different than this one. So I'm undecided on which one I'll use, but I don't particularly want to use a broken one, and I don't have any other 50 millimeter spaced keeper bars other than this one. But that's something you can always change after. So I'm going to rewind this. I'm going to do probably my 557 or 550. I'm going to do the 558 spec for the bridge. Just the turn count and the layer pattern spread and tension on an Alnico 5. My 558s are Alnico 4. The bobbins look to be very similar in shape and size and inside the where the coil fills. But yeah, we're going to use some softer hookup wire, and we're not going to do it this way because I think this has too much potential for things going wrong. So we're going to rewind it. We'll be back with a functional pickup. I'm not going to wax pot this one just because it takes a long time to melt the wax just for one pickup. Then I'd have to shoot the second half of this video tomorrow, and I don't feel like it because tomorrow's a busy day. So we'll be back with a rewound, whatever this will be. Okay, so I've rewound both bobbins. I was going to use the dark plain enamel coil wire that I use on my 557s and 558s, but decided to match as close as I could the coil wire to what it had originally, which was a 42 gauge poly coated wire. So it's like the bright orange as you see in the pictures that I put before this, showing the different steps of stripping these clean and rewinding them. I decided to do that instead of using the 557 and the 558 stuff. And I wound them to 558 specs, so like the same amount of turns. They have been reading a little bit hotter, so that tells me that the space in the bobbin that the coil fits in is a slightly different dimension than the bobbins I use for my 5 series pickups. So we'll see what kind of result we get when we all wire it in. But we have all the parts here. I did find an extra 50 millimeter keeper bar that is identical to the stock one that's broke here. So instead of using the zinc one, we'll use that guy. It's the exact same as this. So it'll be closer to original as far as the full parts makeup, just not so much the wind. So we've got a soldering iron heated up. We just have to start assembling the pickup. So I'm not going to talk through this. I'm just going to speed it up so you can see the whole thing. And then we'll get to the sound test stuff. So here goes. So pickup has been rewound and it's been rebuilt, reassembled. We'll do a quick check here on the resistance and the Henrys. So we're a little higher than the 8.58 I was shooting for. So we're at about just under 9. So a little bit less turns than the stock bridge No.7 S. And as far as Henrys goes, we're getting 5.4 Henrys on there. But it's funny that the reading is a little hotter than I normally get with the amount of turns I put on here. So that's definitely the space in the bobbin where the coil wire fills up has a slightly different dimension, like size, like in height and how wide the core is. And so what that does is it changes the shape of the coil and it grows a bit faster. So it ends up, even though you've got the same amount of turns, you're using more wire than you would on a different spec bobbin. So we are reusing PRS import parts from G&B Pickups here, but it works. It's now a functioning pickup again, and we're going to compare this rewind that's kind of close-ish to the stock 7S, and hopefully we hear a difference. Maybe we won't hear any difference at all, because I am reusing the same parts. So we will do a quick sound test as a baseline, and then we'll hear what it sounds like with the other pickup. I won't show the install of the pickup. Done that, and the video is already way too fucking long right now anyway. So I'll hook up the rig and get back at you with some sounds and some shitty playing. We are in the clean channel of the Bogner. I'm using the Bogner 3534 again because it's still set up from the last video. The mic hasn't moved or anything, so I just had to fire everything up, and then that way there we can, if you wanted to go check the previous video, you can kind of compare more sounds from this in its stock form. But for right now, we're just going to do the bridge pickup because that's the one we rewound. So we'll compare just bridge. Here's a clean riff of sorts. Here it's split. Back to full humbucker. Let's add some dirt. Bridge pickup on the blue channel with a bit of boost. As you can hear the noise. Full humbucker, no sped. That should be enough for you to get some tones on there. Bonus points if you know what song that was. All right, gonna put the rewind in and be back with some shit playing on that one and call it a day. There's the pickup I just pulled out of this guitar. This would be the SP PRS 7 TNC. That's the bridge pickup here. And in here now we have the rewind. And what's funny is that they sound really close. So it'll be interesting to listen to the recorded stuff back to back after and see if there's how big of a difference there is, if any. Because right now I can't remember what it sounded like exactly. Maybe when we put the gain in, but so same thing. I'm gonna try and remember the same riffs so that I can at the end splice them again, A, B, A, B, A, B. But some cleans on the clean channel with Flint reverb and on the bridge. Do some split. Add some gain, same settings as last time. So what I'm finding is the rewind, although the tone is very similar to this one sounds a little bit more open. Could also be because this one's not potted, whereas that one is. But it's also more responsive with the volume knob than the stock one. Could be just the way that I wound it. Could be that the coil wire that they used, and I don't know. But there's a little difference, but they're like, we'll see if the recorded versions go in A, B, and B side by side. If that will, reveal more of a difference, or maybe it'll sound exactly the same. Let's find out together. So that concludes season 2. It's been a wild experience. We have this would be the 23rd episode of season 2, and we're at 50, so this would be 51 video uploads. We're building something, I hope. Trying to keep it fun, try to keep it real. You know, can't really do this without an audience, and it seems like I'm slowly growing that piece by piece. And yeah, so I don't know how much I'm going to do this summer. We'll see. Whenever I have a chance and a topic, I'll do something, but they'll probably be shorter videos that I won't call episodes. They'll just be random strays, stuff like that. But then when we come back in September, when school starts and I get the house to myself again, if I'm still able to do all this still, we'll get back at her, and we'll be approaching the 1-year mark of me doing this shit and questioning why to myself on a daily basis. It'll mark a year. I think I started, well, let's check right now. Wrong mouse. When you work with computers, you have like 2 mice, a laptop and a desktop. Yeah, October 17th is the first upload, so on October 17th will be the 1-year mark. So that'll be fun, but we'll probably get started before that, like September, something like that. It'll be a year of doing this. So with that, I thank everyone who's watching, who has watched, who continues to watch, who hasn't watched yet but maybe just started, or hasn't found me yet but will find me, down the road in the future. Just thanks for hanging out and being part of this ride, as I normally say, right? I really am appreciative of that. Another big shout out, just in case you guys watch, anybody who's made orders for pickups on the website this year, a very heartfelt thank you. I do appreciate it. You are supporting, there's small outfit, family man, and and it gives me a reason to keep digging away at this tone thing and making pickups and thinking of new things to cover or to make or all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for that, there'd be no point in making pickups. There may be no point in making these videos. So to all of you who had orders put in through the site that I've either shipped out pickups to or am waiting on parts to build them to ship them out, cheers to you. To anybody who's been watching along the way, hanging out, cheers to you. If you don't like beer or don't have beer, can't have beer, cheers to you. It's pretty much his water anyway. It's been cool, and I'm looking forward to the 1-year mark. Things that I'm working towards that I plan to do more is I need to nail down, try and get the best recorded sound possible before I start the Romaine Pickups YouTube thing, where I'd have more of like my stuff going through, and then keeping this more guitar related in general. So balancing the two, because there's a lot of times where I get ideas for videos, but I don't want to do them on this because they're very brand related, and I don't want to be shoving that down your throat too much. I'm not a salesman, which is probably why I'm just a one-man pickup winding thing. But we're building stuff, and we're building this whole ecosystem and this community. So to that, I hope that summer's here, and not everywhere is great right now. The whole planet has shit going on all over the place. So hopefully everyone who's watching this is able to find solace in guitar and their peace with guitar in times where, sucks for a lot of people, if not most. Stay safe, stay humble, be human, be kind, enjoy life, and help others enjoy life if you can. Play lots of guitar, and see you on the flip side.